They say the dolls whisper when the wind stops. Mateo laughed the first time he heard that. He laughed until he found a blue ribbon on the riverbank. The ribbon belonged to Lena, his niece. She had disappeared 2 weeks earlier. The police said she had run off. The town called it misfortune. Mateo called a hole in his home that would not close. He folded the ribbon and carried it like a promise. The island of dolls was a small dark dot on the water. Trees hung low and toys swayed from their branches. Dolls hung like dry fruit. Their eyes were glass, cracked or missing. Their hair had been braided with moss. Their mouths were stitched or broken. The sight made Mateo want to turn and leave, but the ribbon in his pocket pulled him forward. A narrow dock gaped into the river. Mateo stepped onto it and the wood complained. He walked between the trees and felt watched. The dolls tilted their heads as he passed. He reached a crooked shack at the island center. Dolls filled its windows and porch. Inside the shack, a doll wore a blue ribbon, its head tilted, and one eye had been replaced with a button. Mateo's hands moved before his sense could keep up. He touched the ribbon and felt a cold like a held breath. The room smelled of old cloth and rain. "You found it," said a voice. An old man stood in the doorway. His coat had many patches. His eyes were small and steady. "Did you see Lena?" Mateo demanded. The man shook his head. "The island keeps pieces," he said. "People bring things, and the dolls listen. Sometimes it gives back what it can. Sometimes it keeps things that are needed for remembering." Mateo sat on the porch that night with a blanket and the memory of how Lena laughed. The river made a slow sound. The dolls swayed like an audience. The old man's candle cast long, thin shadows. At midnight, a girl stepped from the trees. Her dress clung as if it had been in water too long. Her hair was tied with weeds. Her skin had that pale look of someone who had been away from sun. Around her wrist, a blue ribbon fluttered. For a moment, Mateo forgot to breathe. Lena looked like herself and not. Her eyes were open too wide. She moved as if listening to a sound he could not hear. "Uncle," she said. Her voice was the same bell he knew, and yet it had another note, like echo. "Where did you go?" Mateo asked, his words falling apart. She touched the ribbon and looked at the dolls in a way that made Mateo cold. "I followed a sound under the bank," she said. "It cried like a child. I went to bring it up. The water took me and kept me. The dolls listened when I cried. They promised to hold my pieces if I gave them what they asked for." "Pieces?" Mateo echoed. She smiled gently. "A hair, a laugh, a ribbon. Things that make someone whole. I left them and the dolls kept them close. They will remember me better that way." An old fear pushed into Mateo like running cold. "You cannot trade a life for things," he said. She looked at him with a sadness like a closed door. "You don't understand. The island fixes what it can. It stitches. But fixing needs what a person offers. It keeps what helps it remember." Mateo reached for her and the air tightened. The dolls stirred. Their invisible fingers seemed to brush his face. Vines touched his boots. The old man's candle blew out, and for a moment everything was thick and close. When the light returned, Lena sat on the dock. The ribbon on the doll in the shack was gone. Mateo's hand held only cold air. She stood and walked to the water's edge. Her movement was slow and peaceful, like someone going home. "Leave," she mouthed to him. Her lips shaped a word he felt in his chest. "Forgive." Mateo lunged and grabbed at her sleeve. His hand met only wet cloth. She slipped from his grip, and the river took her without a sound. He dove, reaching blindly through cold water and weeds. When he surfaced, he coughed air like a man born again. The ripple in the river smoothed, and Lena was gone. He told the town. Some believed. Others called it grief and sleepwalking. Mateo began to leave small things on the island, coins, a comb, a photograph. The dolls accepted them and hung them among old faces. New dolls arrived after storms. Ribbons tied and frayed. The island changed like a slow tide. Once, in the hush before dawn, Mateo heard a child's voice from the trees. It said his name in a soft, wrong way. He answered and felt his voice then in the open air. The dolls kept watching. Visitors still come. They take photos and laugh. They tie dolls and hope for luck. Some leave offerings. Some leave with a new story to tell. Mateo kept going back because he could not stop looking into the place that had taken apart Lena and given him back something that looked like her. If you ever visit that river and the small island with its hanging faces stares back at you, remember this. Some places keep what hurts to remember. The dolls are not kind or cruel. They are patient. They listen and collect. They will give you a story that fits into your mouth easily, and they will take a piece of you for safekeeping. When the wind stops, press your ear to the dark and listen. The dolls might whisper your name, and you will know then the sound of being remembered by something that keeps pieces instead of people. If you listen closely, you might learn the island's true name, the one it whispers to those who always stay.